Today we have the U.S. Senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. Thanks for coming back on.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be back with you.
So the luck of being able to talk with you of all weeks on the week that we have reports that President Biden is considering eliminating some amount of federal student loan debt.
Yes.
So a couple of questions on this, but first, what would this mean if this happens?
It would mean that literally tens of millions of Americans would see their lives fundamentally changed. And that would mean that folks who are struggling with student loan debt would have a chance to move out of mom's basement, a chance to save up and buy a home, chance to buy a car, chance to start a small business, a chance for some to start a family. This huge debt burden that people have taken on is holding back all of that for people, and for many people shaping their lives. And we have a chance to get rid of that, to change that, and to do a little intergenerational justice, a little racial justice, a little gender justice, just make this a little fairer world.
Now, there are, of course, the opponents out there who are making the argument, I tightened my belt, I paid off my loans, I did it the right way. Why are these people getting it for free? So what's your response to that? And is there some way to offer some kind of reward or benefit to other people?
Look, let me start with the whole question of we invest in education as a nation, right? We don't ask second graders to pay to go to second grade. We invest in public education. And I grew up in a family, my daddy ended up as a janitor, my mom ended up working the phones at Sears. I wanted to be a public school teacher, meant college, first in my family who was going to go off and try this and ultimately ended up graduating. I had a chance to follow my dream because there was a college available, University of Houston, that cost $50 a semester. So for a price I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job, I was able to finish a 4-year diploma and become a public school teacher. Why was that college available at that price? Because America invested in kids who didn't have enough money to be able to get a post-high school education. That's not the case today. Today, that option just isn't out there. There just aren't those 4-year colleges, even 2-year schools, technical schools, training schools, where people will have an opportunity to get an education. And the idea of saying to young people, don't get an education unless you're 100% sure that you're going to be able to pay it off on down the line, I think is not only something that is not who we are as Americans. We're about build opportunity, invest in yourself, make something, but it's also not good for our economy. You asked me when I started what all this would mean. It is not good for our economy that the data show that student loan debt is holding people back from starting small businesses. I mean, ask yourself, how many really good ideas that somebody had actually have not made it to market here in the United States because somebody said, yeah, I'd live on ramen noodles and have 7 roommates and do everything I can to put all I can into starting these business, but I can't make a $400 a month student loan payment for months after month after month into the future while I try to launch this business. So I say all that by way of saying, look, we have to keep in mind the investment is one we need to make collectively. It's about canceling student loan debt. It's about finding a way to pay for college for everybody who's coming online right now. And it's about holding those colleges accountable. And if I can, I want to say one more thing about this. We've got to keep in mind who these folks are. 40% of the people who are dealing with student loan debt don't have a college diploma. These are people who tried, but life happened. Got pregnant, working 3 jobs, mom got sick, family had to move somewhere else, and they were never able to make it to a college diploma. So they're earning what a high school grad earns and getting crushed by college loan debt. That isn't how we build an America that is one of opportunity for everyone.
What can we do in the way of confronting the root of this problem? I mean, granted, there are ways to help people, like eliminating student loan debt for people who've already incurred that debt, but we have generations of kids who are coming up who are going to deal with the same problem. I mean, do we just keep slapping band-aids on this? What can be done to actually deal with the root of an education, that costs what I think the most expensive schools are like 70 grand these days?
Crazy.
Like,
Yep.
yeah.
So look, let's look at it really big picture. If you pull back to 100,000 feet, my view on this is we need to put a wealth tax in place in America. And one of the many things we could pay for with a wealth tax is we could make college free. We could make all of our state colleges accessible to everyone. And I think that's exactly what we should do. We could also make an extra investment into our historically Black colleges and universities and our minority serving institutions. For me, it's like an investment in roads and bridges. A well-educated workforce is a part of what makes us a strong country. We could make bigger investments in technical education, 1-year programs and 2-year programs. So all of that is, for me, the right answer and where we ought to be heading. But let me say, even in a little shorter range, even if you can't get all the pieces in place, we can do a lot through income determined repayment plans so that how much you're paying in student loan debt depends in part on how much you're earning. That's a part of what we could do. And another part that we have to look at is holding colleges and universities accountable on cost increases. If they want access to federal support, then there has to be some accountability for that. So I do not deny there is a lot of work to be done, but a good starting place is to say to the millions of Americans who are struggling with student loan debt that we're going to cancel $50,000 of student loan debt, which for about 34 million would mean all of their debts wiped out. Their life changes in an instant. And I think that's powerfully important.
Like you said, bringing all of those people, even if you don't agree with the personal responsibility argument, which I don't find particularly compelling, but even if you don't agree with that, just look at the benefits from a countrywide perspective, bringing all of those people into the economy. Think about how your businesses and your restaurants and your retail will all thrive if more people have money, if more people are able to spend that.
I love that. And let me just say on that personal responsibility, we're not talking about people who went to the mall and just ran up big bills.
Right.
We're talking about people
they committed the cardinal sin of trying to get an education. And just like I said about second graders, we recognize the value of education for all of us. We're better off with an educated workforce. It lifts GDP for the entire nation. Go back and look at the GI Bill and the consequences of offering what was in effect free college or debt forgiveness, however you want to frame it, for all those GIs returning from World War II. And most economists now say it lifted our economy way beyond where it would have been in post-war America. We all benefited, whether we were actually in a family that got those benefits directly or not. So this past week, we saw an avalanche of scandals on the right related to January 6th. Marjorie Taylor Greene pretended in court that she had no recollection of telling Mark Meadows about imposing martial law. Kevin McCarthy lied about telling his colleagues that Trump should resign, and then he lied again about lying. What's your response to these Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Kevin McCarthy, who seem to not even care at all anymore about the appearance of even overt corruption?
This really tells you, this is the leadership of the Republican Party, and they're laying it out there in full view for everyone to see. They believe in power, and they want power no matter what. And if it means they lie, if it means that they undermine our democracy, if it means they try to overthrow an election, if it means that they talk about high prices in America, but their only ideas are to go back and refight 2020, they don't care, because they think they can stir up enough people to seize power. In the House of Representatives, they hope to do the same thing in the Senate, and come 2024, they want to do the same thing in the White House. And what really just bears down on me is They have no ideas to try to help create more opportunity in this country. No ideas for how it is that we're going to make sure that people can afford their health care. No ideas for how it is that mamas and daddies are going to get access to childcare. No ideas for how they're going to bring down prices at the pump. They don't want to regulate giant businesses, even if they're engaged in price gouging. They don't have ideas about making government work for people. They just have ideas about how they can seize power, be the ones on top, and make this country run for a smaller and smaller and smaller group. I really believe in the 2022 election, the 2024 election, democracy is on the line.
I think it's ironic too about, these are the people who will go on Fox News and wail about every single problem there is about prices at the pump, about inflation, and yet when there are bills on the floor that would actually solve these problems, bills that would lower the costs for Americans, like all the elements of Build Back Better to allow the government to negotiate lower drug prices, child care, universal pre-K. They vote against all of it.
That's right. Anti-price gouging. They don't want anything on that, right? It really is. And the thing is, I say we got to just call them out. Just enough of this. We cannot pretend that we have two political parties in America who are just putting out competing ideas about their vision of how to make this economy work better, how to make opportunity available for more people. That's not what's going on at all. These are guys who are all about seizing power, and if democracy is thrown out the window, but they can end up with more power, evidently that's okay with them.
Let's finish off with this. Looking ahead to midterms, we've got a tough fight in our hands. Obviously, the president has a low approval rating, or although perhaps less low if he cancels student debt, and the party in power historically loses seats anyway. So in an era where the zone is so flooded, there are so many scandals, so many issues, so much stuff happening, what should Democrats focus on? What specific narrow idea should the Democrats focus on as we head into this election cycle?
Well, first of all, we've got less than 200 days. We need to deliver. That is my message in all capital letters, deliver. And that means, let's take a look at what we've got 50 Democrats in the Senate, because obviously this is where the bottleneck is. And look at the pieces that I believe we could deliver. We could attack corruption head on. We could ban stock ownership, individual stock ownership, stock trading for all members of Congress. And actually, we could put some ethics rules in place for the United States Supreme Court. That's stuff we could do. It's stuff that's wildly popular, not just among Democrats, but Democrats, Republicans, and independents. Price gouging, antitrust law enforcement. This would help bring down prices in the short run and help bring down prices in the long run. And again, the American people get it. By a margin of 2-1, American citizens are saying that price gouging is contributing to the increased costs that they're experiencing every day. Taxes, how about a little tax reform that puts some fairness into this system? 15% minimum book tax on these giant corporations that make more than $1 billion in profits and end up paying zero in taxes. We put an end to that. That brings in a lot of revenue. Fund the IRS so that they don't just go after taxpayers who make little math mistakes, middle-class folks who are working to try to get it right, but go after the big-time tax cheats. Those two things on taxes, minimum corporate tax and funding the IRS so they go after tax cheats. Do you realize that would bring in over $700 billion? And what could we do with money like that? We could do universal child care. I mean, just to pick one. As you mentioned, drug negotiation. We could do it. And it's not just what Congress can do. Mr. President, you got a lot of tools. Cancel student loan debt. Raise the level where people have to get overtime pay. So more Americans have more money. The president can do a lot on his own to lower the price of prescription drugs. Now, I know you said, can we just do 1 or 2 or 3 things? I think what we have to do is we need to be out there fighting every single day. And when we get one in the W column, then let's say hallelujah, but let's fight for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And when it ends up in the L column, let's call out the Republicans who voted against it. Because everything I'm talking about, it's not just a liberal agenda, it's not just a progressive agenda, it's not just a democratic agenda. These are the things the American people want to see us do. We are in the majority. How about we do the stuff that people elected us to do? We do that. I think we can walk into those elections in November with our heads held high.
Senator Warren, thank you so much for coming on, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me. It's always good to have a chance to visit with you.